Hello and welcome to another episode of You Might Want to Sit Down for This Podcast. I'm your host, Kevin Von Helvet, and we're at episode 13, Lucky 13. Really excited about my guest on this episode. Arguably the biggest guest I've had yet. Definitely a man who has been influenced in my life. Been listening to his music for, nearly 30 years. For a long time. Corrupted my mind because I've got the one and only, the lead singer, motherfucking frontman of the best band in the world, the Dwarves. I've got Blag The Ripper on this episode. And yeah, if you don't know who that is, well, you're about to find out. If you do, you're like, fuck yeah, way to go, Kev. You got Blag, dope. The Dwarves. The Dwarves are a fast, raunchy, obnoxious, awesome fucking punk rock band that have been around since the 80s. They've done stints on Sub Pop, Epitaph, other labels that I'm not going to fucking look up. But these days, Blag, the singer, has managed to get most of that music back on his own label, Greedy, which is dope. Which is also confusing, tricky right now, because I have like 200 songs to choose from to play, and most of the Dwarf songs are less than a minute long, so I feel like I don't quite know what I'm going to do yet, but I might just end this and just play a whole album, because it's only like 18 minutes long, like some of their older ones. We'll see what happens, but definitely going to be playing some Dwarves music on this. It's a fun interview with Blag. He's a really cool, down-to-earth dude. We talk about music, the music industry. We talk about just some of the crazy stories of the Dwarves, because they've been pretty wild, and PC culture, and a lot of it, though, a lot about music. A little bit about Gigi Allin. We cover a lot of ground, and I'm stoked on this thing, so I hope you will be too. As always, just give a shout out to the lovely Alexi from 604 Records, who's doing the sound, making this always sound good. I'll ask you to check us out on sitdownforthispodcast.com or comedyhereoften.com, or follow on Instagram, Sit Down For This Podcast. Check it out, like, share, follow, tell your friends. Tell them to listen to the Dwarves, because the Dwarves are fucking rock and roll. Yeah, I think I'm just going to fucking leave her at that. I'm not going to tell any stories, just because no stories are better than this interview I got coming up with Blag. So enjoy this episode with Blag The Ripper. All right, I'm here with the legendary Blag The Ripper. How's it going, Blag?
Blag The Ripper in the place to be. I'm feeling good. I'm feeling strong.
Right on, man. Thanks for coming on the show.
Got a little kitty cat here. Hello.
Hi. Nice. We're a cat-friendly podcast. I have a black cat and a white cat. The black cat looks very similar to yours. What's your cat's name?
That's Rita.
Rita, cool.
Yeah, there's Rita and Rollo.
Nice. I got Carmelita, named after is it Warren Zevon, the Gigi cover? Warren Gigi does the cover.
I didn't know that one.
Oh, it's amazing. He does a cover of Carmelita, and then the black cat's named Zeke after,
yeah, those guys are friends of mine from Seattle. Yeah.
It's not a Bible reference for sure. It's definitely the fucking band from Seattle. But I was just saying, I'm wearing a Gigi shirt, and you said you knew the man, and now this is where this is not in any of my notes, but I want to hear about Gigi.
Yeah, it must have been like 88 maybe. Gigi was locked up in maximum security prison in Michigan for making terroristic threats. The Secret Service actually got him locked up. I guess he had been writing to the president, or he had been writing to Hinckley
Yeah.
saying that he admired him and that, all this kind of stuff. So he got on their radar, and they locked him up. And so we went to visit him. We were passing through on an early tour, and we went to see Gigi. It was quite a sight, man. I mean, he was in maximum security prison in Michigan, and really like, shaving his head in patches. He told me so it looked like he had AIDS and shit. Like,
Wow.
I was kind of like, yeah, good luck with all that, man. I hope it all works out for you. Yeah.
Would somebody rape Gigi? Like, I don't like.
Hey, man, people do all kinds of things,
Yeah.
People who are very tough in our scene aren't so tough in that scene sometimes,
Fair enough. Was he who wearing the wrestling mask and his Ginch when he went to visit?
Yeah. We were in civilian clothes.
All right.
A couple years later, we were supposed to do a show in San Francisco, and he showed up, but he had cut himself so badly the night before that he had, blood poisoning, some kind of sepsis thing. They had to take him to the hospital. I had his band stay here for a night. They were a bunch of kind of weird, like, you couldn't really tell what was up with them.
Yeah.
Like, they were sort of following him around, kind of the reflected glory, but they all kind of smelled like shit, and we're all kind of weird, like kind of institutional bisexual guys or something. I couldn't really get a handle on them. So, I let everybody stay here for the night. And then Gigi went to the hospital. They canceled the show. So I told the band, all right, well, it's over, then they got all weird, like, well, we can't hang out here. And I'm like, I let you hang out here for a night. Now you're canceling the show, dude. It's not a permanent invite,
They wanted to move in. Wow.
Yeah, I mean, I think they were kind of like that, sort of hang out wherever. And I went to see Gigi a few nights later. They rescheduled at some half-ass place that didn't know what they were getting into. Gigi was literally taking X-Lax and throwing shit, and the whole place just smelled like shit. And I saw him take a microphone stand and smash this girl like right in the collarbone. The whole thing was insane.
Yeah, man. I never saw him live, but I mean, I've got Hated, actually, funny enough. I've got the documentary sitting right here, the DVD, so I've watched.
I'm sure there's a scene or two that was shot here in my apartment in San Francisco.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, I mean, I never took a careful analysis of it, but I think that Phillips was here, if I'm not mistaken, and they were definitely filming those guys and their weird habits,
That's amazing. I love that story too. How like Todd Phillips went on to be like this super successful director, like The Hangover, and like anyone like sort of who doesn't know of Gigi, I feel it's like my job to explain. Like, you like Todd Phillips movies, you got to see his first one.
Yeah, I mean, Gigi is a one of a kind kind of character.
Yeah.
Oh man, this must be from the washing machine here. Wow. Okay. But yeah, he was a one of a kind character. You don't really see people like that anymore in punk rock music. You didn't really see people like that then, to be honest with you. I mean, he was
wild, man. I have that DVD here because my neighbor came over the other day, and he smokes a lot of weed. I'm not really a weed guy, but I tend to have. There's always some here somewhere. So he asked me if I wanted a rug first, and I was like, bro, I'm in a wheelchair. Rugs suck, but thanks. And he's like, well, do you want a coffee maker? And I'm like, no, man. Like, what's going on? Do you have any weed? I'm like, you don't have to give me shit to get weed. And I was wearing this shirt, and he was like, cool shirt. And I'm like, give me a second. Let's make a deal here. I'll give you some weed for free, but you got to watch this DVD. And he's like, I'll watch it with my daughter. Cool. And I ran into him yesterday, and she apparently made it 20 minutes in and bailed. And then she's like maybe in her 20s, early 20s. And he made it all the way through. He was, I think he probably looks at me a little differently now after watching that. I gave him a little bit of a disclaimer, but yeah. Gigi one of a kind for sure. But let's talk about the Dwarves. The almighty Dwarves.
We are legendary.
You are. You had a show recently.
Yeah, we did an online thing from out of the Great American Music Hall in San Francisco. That was fun. just fun to get the band together after a year of not playing. And, it was, I think everybody's pretty anxious to get back to real shows by the time we got around to doing our canned one, everybody's kind of used to going back. So I don't know, but it
depends where you are though.
It was a lot of fun to play with those guys. That's one of the great pleasures of my life is singing with those guys, and we had a bunch of chicks dancing, and it was a lot of fun.
Cool, man. And do you have any live things? Is there any live shows on the books? You got anything coming up?
There's some live shows, but we're going to play a couple shows with the Queers in October.
Nice.
Most of what I've got going over the summer is my solo stuff. I go by the name Ralph Champagne, and I do
really?
my solo stuff, and that's pretty fun. I mean, I made a really good record during the whole COVID scare, and it's very kind of, it hasn't come out. I'm just going to make a bunch of videos for it and stuff like that. I mean, because it's a lot of friends of mine, session guys and stuff like that. There isn't really a band. And so it's kind of a interesting record. It's Americana music, country music, some kind of rockabilly-ish stuff, but very kind of tongue-in-cheek humor.
Yeah.
A lot of, humorous stuff, story songs, stuff that's a lot different than the Dwarves. But everybody I play it for trips out. It's a pretty great record, so.
Sick, man. You know what? I go to punk rock bowling every year, and probably the best show I've ever seen at punk rock bowling for sure it was about noon. It was in the lounge at the Golden Nugget. Noon feels about like 7 a.m. in Vegas when so I maybe got there a little bit late, but it was you doing acoustic. I think it was like an hour or 2 hour set, and he joined you.
Tough. 2 hours in the rush lunch. I don't know about noon. I don't do much at noon, but
it felt like it felt earlier than noon, man.
Yeah, it felt early. I think it was around 5-6 o'clock, but
really? What did I do the night before?
It was a good time, and I had to play a lot of songs. I mean, it's tough to fill up 2 hours for people, but yeah, it was that. It kind of stems from that. A lot of sort of humorous stuff. I mean, I do Dwarf songs, but I try not to lean on that. I try and have a whole different set of more Americana kind of stuff that's different.
Dude, you've done punk rock, you've done a little bit of EDM, bluegrass, hip hop, metal. I mean, Early Grace, Penetration Moon, acoustic. Fuck, man, country, pop. Pretty much covered every genre. Like, it's amazing.
I try to. I mean, I think the worst part about punk rock is just the repetition and people doing the same things in the same way all the time. So we always tried to make different kinds of records. And then later on, I started making things in different genres, stuff that turned me on. It felt interesting, there's a lot of people in punk just kind of selling T-shirts and doing the same thing.
Yeah. Not you. No, man. And yeah, I mean, every album sounds different than side projects. Is there like a side project or something maybe your fans would be surprised to hear that you were a part of or didn't know?
Oh, I think Ralph Champagne will be pretty fascinating. I don't know, some of the production I've done. I just produced something with some female vocalists and, sort of woke lyrics and stuff. I think that might surprise people.
Yeah.
I just try and stretch out and do different things, but it's hard. You need some kind of a mechanism to tie it together, some kind of brand, so people don't really believe certain kinds of stuff coming from the Dwarves. So then you got to kind of change the name and do different things, and it's a whole process,
Yeah, I think that's because, I mean, the first album I got of the Dwarves was Blood, Guts, and Pussy. I believe that was in '92. The album cover
1990.
I was I think 13. I just got in. A guy named Scott Chalmers. We were skateboarding, and he had a mixed tape, and it was Descendants, Pennywise, Bad Religion, and the Dwarves that was on it. And the Tragically Hip for some fucking weird reason too. But but yeah, the Dwarves definitely spoke to me, and I eventually, once I was able to leave my little town and get into the city to buy the cassette tape, Blood Guts and Pussy was my first Dwarves album. And
Nice.
my mom would like find that tape and confiscate it. My mom's rad though, but she would never throw it away. And I would like, go through all her shit and find it back, and I'd have it for a while. Then she'd take it and like, yeah, man, it's just
Yeah,
legendary
there were
album.
a lot of parents confiscating our stuff, and also a lot of girlfriends that said, "You take that poster down, or I'm not."
Yeah.
That kind of stuff.
But that's funny, like, because you said you're doing the woke stuff, and I think people who probably don't get the joke or don't get the humor think the Dwarves are just a bunch of misogynistic pigs. But, like, really, you're working with females. You've been working with females for years. And
I mean, I have mixed feelings about this stuff because on the one hand, I think of myself as a pretty enlightened, kind person. I'm not trying to hurt anybody. I'm not trying to destroy anybody. I always saw the Dwarves as for kind of all the misfits and the malcontents and the people who didn't fit in. So for me, I was always didn't feel comfortable with the hatred of women, hatred of gay people, all this kind of thing. That's not my style. But at the same time, music is kind of a reflection of your id, your most basic primal impulses. So there's a lot of sex in there, a lot of death, a lot of violence. And so when you have that in your music, people tend to think, they conflate it, I think a lot of people's music takes place on a real surface level, that there's not much of an emotional attachment to it. And so their lyrics are kind of about what they're about, so they'll, Bad Religion comes out and they'll talk about religion's a bad thing and big business did a bad thing. And philosophically people should feel this way. And, I just didn't dabble in that. I certainly have my opinions about things, but that to me is a different conversation than the conversation of like, here's some noise and we're just going to scream and be insane,
yeah.
And I mean, rock and roll is funny that way. Like people assume that you are your songs, so they're very surprised when it's like, oh, James Taylor beat up his girlfriend or whatever, it's like they think, oh, gee, but your song's so mellow, of course you'd never be that way. And then conversely, your song's insane. Of course, this is what you're like. You're trying to rape everybody and fuck teenagers and hurt everybody, and it's like, that's a testament to how well we do.
Yeah.
Is that people believe it,
Yeah.
And, there's definitely some true shit too. There's
Oh,
definitely
for sure.
real shit that happened that people are like, whoa, that was pretty heavy. It's like, well, life has some heavy shit in it, There's been some extreme violence and weird things. And so, it happens.
Yeah, there's the Dwarves have some wild stories. I'm sure there's a book coming out soon. Is Vag Moore doing a book?
Vag Moore did his book. Yes, I love the man. He's so great, and I wrote the introduction to it.
Cool.
Yeah, I'm a huge fan of Vag. I just think he's a hilarious, one of a kind of a person. Yeah, I'm a huge fan. All the guys in my group are very interesting.
Yeah, they're characters for sure, man.
Yeah, I mean, the guys I have now, everybody's a good songwriter. You get a guy like Nick Oliveri, is sort of a desert rock legend. He's such a great songwriter, such a great lyricist and musician. And Fresh Prince of Darkness, he comes from that band Moto Christ, a lot more kind of Stonesy, mid-tempo-y kind of stuff. Again, just an amazing writer, great lyrics. A lot of times these guys write lyrics and you'd swear that I wrote them. Saltpeter, who I went to high school with, was an original member of the Dwarves, and he who cannot be named, who I met when I was in high school. I mean, both of them write really strong songs with great lyrics. So, I've been lucky that way. Even Josh Freese, who's like session drummer guy, comes in with songs and lyrics and stuff about the band. He wrote the song Everything in Moore, which was about Badge Moore and Rex Everything.
Yeah.
And so, it's very like, it's kind of a mythology that feeds on itself,
That's awesome, and it's rad. You have all those. I mean, the characters all fit. I say characters because I don't know. Yeah, and you've got this collective where sometimes you've got different people in the band at different times, but it always works. The sound's always good, and bringing people like collaborations. Josh Freeze he's probably like the biggest session drummer there is. Really, like the dude plays with fucking everybody.
He's pretty amazing, and yeah, it's really been nice to have somebody like that in your corner, you know. And I've gotten lucky with that. I got lucky with producers. I met Eric Valentine very young, before he was a big name producer. He helped me out a real lot. Guy I work with now a lot is a guy named Andy Carpenter. He's an amazing producer that a lot of people don't know about, and they really should. You know, that was another thing about the Dwarves. Like, I was never trying to work with everybody who was like punk like me. You know, I figured I had that covered, and that I was trying to work with people that were really good players and really good producers and people who knew what they were doing. You know, I never really got it together on the business side to do it that way. But in terms of the musicians and the producers and the quality of the recordings and things, I really tried to keep it as high as you could, you know, with the kind of budgets that we got and the kind of things we were able to do. I think it was a good combination, lowbrow and highbrow, and talented and insane, and, you know, everything was kind of mixed together in there.
I agree, and like the early stuff has the more lo-fi kind of garage sound, but that works with the early stuff, right? And the new stuff now is very well produced and has great fucking sound, man.
We didn't have any assistants producing things for a very long time through Blood Guts or through any of it. Thank heaven was supposed to be when we got with Butch Vig, but they sent us to Butch Vig's studio and he wasn't there. So stuff like that, you know, that was a big part of the Dwarves story. I had to stumble into my own production and figure it out, you know.
Yeah. And you do a lot of the production now, do you not? Like,
I've always done it, but I just know a lot more than I used to.
Of course, yeah. And it shows. You can hear it. And like with are you putting out the albums on your own label now? Like for the last, or pretty much? Like,
yeah, I mean, you know, it's a label. It's called Greedy. It's basically an imprint, you know. So I'm not really interested in running a record label. It's more like these are just all the Dwarves records, and they're collected here.
Yeah.
You know, and recently we got all the Sub Pop records back, so now I have those records, and you know, it's that's been nice. You know, I like to have all the Dwarf stuff on my label, you know, but the label is not really, you know, it's not like there's a staff there or a bunch of people working.
But you have the rights to your songs, which is amazing. And I'd say coming from where I'm at right now doing this podcast, I'm having all different kinds of guests on, but I'm playing punk rock. And like, it's just nice to, like, some of the stuff I've tried to get, there's no fucking chance, because like big labels have got their hands on it. And I feel as like punk rock, I'm like, yo, can I play your song on this? I mean, I'm not making any money on this thing. It's promotion and stuff, but there's a lot of hoops you got to jump through. So I think it's cool when bands have their music, you know, and have the rights to it.
The simple answer is that record labels are dumb in a really fossilized and bizarre way, which combines greed with stupidity and laziness. And when you combine those three things, it makes it very weird. I mean, how many decades has it been since you saw a movie about a band that actually used their music? Never fucking happened, because the labels are always too greedy and too stupid to just make a deal.
Yeah.
And so invariably you hear someone, I mean, they made that movie about Freddie Mercury. The label wanted so much money to use Queen's music that the guy making the movie just hired the guys from Queen to replay the music.
Fuck,
and that's how insane it was. It was like, you know, what are you thinking about? I saw that movie with Joaquin Phoenix about Johnny Cash. It's like, do you think we haven't heard Johnny Cash sing?
Yeah.
Is that the idea? I mean, no, any of these movies, it's record labels are, it's just a combination of laziness. There's a lot of laziness, so people just miss things.
Yeah.
You know, you might call in and the label might be willing to let you play the song, but they're lazy. So they got your email and it was just, this is another thing that we're just not going to think about. Or, you know, they get it and it goes to some functionary and they're trying to be real serious and they go, well, gee, you know, our music's not free. You can't just play it. You know, it's like, it's a podcast and it's for people's entertainment, and I'm not charging for advertising. So why wouldn't you want to? Oh, well, yes. I better ask somebody upstairs, you know.
Yeah.
They get to their inbox and then they get lazy and go, wow, this is so small, I don't even want to think about it. You know,
and these are fucking people who never even wrote the song in the first place. Like, they're making the choices. That's annoying. Right.
So and then bands just disengage because they don't own their songs, they don't own their publishing, so they don't really know what to do. They can't get the labels to do anything. Half the time, somebody from in the band fucked somebody at the label's girlfriend or some intern. You know, they hated the labels because I fucked an intern. You know, that kind of shit.
Have you ever fucked an intern?
Yes, of course.
Yes.
Offered, you know. So I mean, you know, it's there's a tremendous amount of stupidity at record labels that's almost mind-boggling if you've actually been there and watched it happen. The levels of the combination of laziness, greed, and incompetence are staggering.
And I love that you called your label where you have your music greedy. Is that a kind of a fuck you to the record labels?
Yeah, it's here. You know, all you fucking people are greedy, and it's okay. So am I. You know?
Yeah. But it's your stuff, man. I got a whole bunch of stuff here, and I've kind of got out of order. What the first things I was going to ask was, were there humble beginnings for the Dwarves, or were you always the best band in the world?
It was pretty humble in a sense. I mean, we had come from the suburbs, you know, your basic middle class kind of Illinois suburb. But we were sort of poking fun at the rich kids, and there was those guys too. There was my daddy got me a Mercedes, suburban kids, and then there were more the ones like us, you know. I was delivering pizzas and just trying to get laid and doing my shit. So it was pretty humble beginnings. And like I say, I mean, we never had management. Nobody ever really believed in us in terms of, and, you know, record labels would, you know, once I made a record and handed it to them, they'd go, great, we'll put this out. You know, that was about as close as we got to people helping us, you know.
Yeah.
So you know, generally came from our vision of things and my vision of things, and working day jobs and t-shirt factories and delivering pizzas and working in restaurants. You know, that was how we lived, and we just you'd quit the job and go on tour for a while and come home. You have to get a new job, new apartment, and, you know.
It must be tough. Because your resume would be very broken. Like, it's like, what have you done for the last 20 years of your life? Like, I worked here for 2 months, I worked here for 3 months, I worked here for 5 days.
Yes, that's very much what it was like. And, you know, I come from educated, intelligent families. They couldn't really understand what I was doing. And I didn't like always having to be with fucking idiots, but that's what happens when you're poor. You get thrown in with that.
Yeah.
There's a great connection between poverty and idiocy as well, because that's what you get tossed into. So then you're kind of at the mercy of that. The worst landlords, the worst shopkeepers, you know, people ripping you off, thieves, you know, shit like that, which I was not used to. I had to figure that out, you know.
Did you ever do a stint in Seattle? Because for some reason, I always thought you guys were from Seattle, but
That was because of Sub Pop. We got signed to Sub Pop around 1989. We were very early on that scene. We played the first festival they did. We were on the bill with Tad. And we knew Mudhoney and Nirvana and these groups. You know, we played with Nirvana, and, you know, Mudhoney hung out at my house and that kind of stuff. So we were absolutely part of that scene, and largely ignored in San Francisco, where we lived. California was very dominated by the glam scene at that time, which we didn't really fit into. And we always saw ourselves as a national band, so we toured and went places, and as a result, you know, we were seen as a Seattle band. I come from Illinois. The band came from Illinois. and we moved to San Francisco in '86, but it didn't really get much traction.
And most of the times I've seen you actually is in Seattle, and that's always a good time because the boys get together, maybe some girls, and we make a trip down to Seattle, and we're not driving home that night, so I probably don't remember more Dwarf shows than I do, but I remember that I had a good time at the end of them. That's for sure.
Yeah, that's all that counts. We try and put on a good show, have some fun, and leave it at that. The record is really where we put in the time. For live, we never really had the budget to put on a big maximum show, have a big crew and all that stuff. So live, we just go for it like it's a party. And, I save the production for the records.
That's the best thing. I remember actually back in those early days with the dude, Scott, who got me into the Dwarves, was like, I got a hold of Blag, and they said they'll come up and play like in Cloverdale, which is kind of near the border, like suburban Vancouver. They'll come and play for beer, and if we have some chicks. And I was like, that fucking rules.
That sounds like an older version of the Dwarves. Yeah. This version is like, yeah, beer, chicks, and a bunch of money.
Some money, please. Yeah, I got to pay the fucking bills. I got to pay the repairman, right?
Right, exactly. The repairman's here.
That last album, is it true? Was it going to come out on Fat, and then did something kind of go sideways, or?
It came out on Burger, and the complete record was going to come out on Burger, which also had their own implosion not long ago.
Yes, that was, yeah.
But Fat was supposed to do an EP, and then they wound up kind of chickening out on it. I guess it was because the Me Too movement was getting into full swing, and they didn't want to be associated with the Dwarves. I found that very strange because I've been literally friends with Mike for 25 years. I've known him forever. I knew Aaron from Fat, so it surprised me. I found it to be pretty weak tea coming from them. I mean, things like that don't upset me that much anymore because I'm very used to it. Yeah. But I wasn't expecting it from a punk rock label. Seemed very strange. I don't have any like Me Too stories like Harvey Weinstein or something.
That's good.
I'm a guy who likes to fuck and has girlfriends and dates people and whatever. I'm not a rapist, Yeah. So to be thrown into that type of thing based on like what's in the media, I found to be a very weak and strange thing to do. And I told them that, this is really embarrassing for you. Like, you shouldn't do this, But
yeah, I was thinking it was cool to see it. Yeah, it was the EP, but I thought, I'm like, cool. They're going over to Fat. Check it out, right? But,
yeah, I mean, by all rights, we should be on a label like Fat or Epitaph or something that does punk records, but it just hasn't worked out that way. Again, I mean, there's a lot of fear around the Dwarves and a lot of misunderstanding, and then a lot of just aesthetic things. A lot of those California punk guys are very limited in the music that they listen to and enjoy. And I think it's made them rich, and they've sold a lot of t-shirts to a lot of dummies, and they've made the same record over and over and over again.
Yeah.
I'm just not built that way. So when I do a song and then it's kind of glammy or it's kind of EDM or it's kind of acoustic or whatever,
bless you.
A lot of California punk guys get very confused, and all of a sudden doesn't sound right to them because it doesn't sound like Bad Religion's third album or whatever music is supposed to sound like to them.
Yeah. Me and Mark, I had Mark on the podcast from Zeke a few episodes ago, and we were kind of talking about that because Epitaph signed the Dwarves and brought on Zeke and brought on New Bomb Turks, and there was this new kind of sound. And then, yeah, it was awesome because it got me into some of those bands. But at the same time, they brought you on, and then they got scared because you didn't sound. But of course you didn't fucking sound. That was the nice thing, that you didn't sound like every other band. It mixed up those compilations, and I thought it was cool.
Yeah, and I think, again, it's like I always felt more respectful of everybody else than they were of me. I would hear a NoFX or Bad Religion, and I would take what I liked from it. Okay, this is melodic, I like this. Or, okay, you did this here, I like that. Whereas I think a lot of other bands, they're very hidebound. Everything has to be this or that. You know, I'm rockabilly. I'm wearing the rockabilly outfit, so I like rockabilly. You know, it's like,
Yeah.
I like rockabilly too. You know, a lot of Dwarf songs are rockabilly songs sped up.
Yeah.
But we never had a bunch of rockabilly fans because they couldn't really make the mental leap. Like, how can I like this? You know,
I'm picturing the Dwarves with a stand-up bass right now.
Yeah, 60s garage was a lot of what got me into rock and roll music in the first place, punk rock music. But we never had many 60s garage fans because they're like, but where are your Beatle boots and your paisley tie? It's like, well, that was on our first record.
Yeah.
And then it would be like, oh, I love that first record of yours. It's like, you'd probably like a lot of my stuff if you listened to it. But, you know, for the most part, music is just wallpaper that backs up people's belief in themselves. So if you believe that you're a kind of working class guy with his hair greased back and you're rockabilly, then you need to believe in that. And if I don't look that way, then you can't really believe that could play that kind of music. If you're a country guy, then you got to have your hat on. Here's my hat, you know.
Yeah.
The punk guy, then you know you need your Liberty Spikes
Yeah,
hairdo.
yeah, man.
I you know, for me, I just found things to like in all those different kinds of music, and I find things to like in, you know, musicals and operas and you know, Indian classical music and all kinds of things that appeal to me. And you know, so that kind of separates the way I look at music from a lot of other people. I just don't look at it like an extension of your wardrobe, you know, and most people do, you know, so it's not. I've given up on people really understanding my band or what I do or how I produce things because it's too much of a mental jump, you know.
But I mean, the people who are in on the I mean, I don't know. Like I said, that was one of my first punk albums, and like, still to this day, I fucking love the Dwarves, man. And I'm always excited for new music because I know it's not gonna be exactly the same thing as last time, and there's gonna be some songs you're like, holy fuck. Have you ever had a moment, because like you do touch on stuff that might be definitely is controversial, but yeah, you're assuming a character. I mean, I do comedy, like, because I make a joke about fucking whatever doesn't mean I believe that. Kind of, I think the same thing you're saying, right? Like, it's a way of getting it out there so people hear it and then think about it in your own way rather than like, yeah, that's what we're doing, right?
Absolutely. And you know, I think that nobody has a problem going to a movie and then understanding that, like, well, the guy that shot that guy probably didn't actually shoot him.
Yes. Or how about all the people who sit at home and watch serial killer documentaries and then post on social media, this is a really good one. Like, this guy had all these girls locked in the basement. I think you'll love it. And you're like, what the fuck?
Yeah, exactly.
It's weird times.
And I think reality television has influenced things a lot. People thinking that everything you see is real.
Yeah.
What people say is actually them or whatever.
Yeah, it's all scripted, that stuff. Was there ever a moment where you kind of took things too far and you were like, whoop, fuck, as the Dwarves? What's that?
I mean, I hope so. You know, there were times I got hurt. There were times I got stabbed. There were times I got guns pulled on me. I mean, you know, depending on what you call going too far, you know, and I think there are various ways to do that. I think musically, you know, there were definitely times when I lost my fans on a particular song. And that's always interesting to me, you know, like you'll do a song, you know, kind of a hip hop feel, and then it's like, well, that's it. I hate these guys now. It's like,
yeah,
okay, so I got a record with a bunch of songs that you would like that are punk rock songs or whatever, but then you hear this instrumental thing or this weird experimental thing or something with a kick drum beat in it, and all of a sudden you hate it now. You know, yes. I always found that kind of fascinating. You know,
I
that kind of music as wardrobe idea of like, but these guys were wearing my outfit, and then they put on this different outfit, and oh boy, you know, I hate that. You know, it's like, okay. You know.
Yeah, I think I was even guilty of that in the days when sometimes bands would change their tunes a bit, but then like, I don't know, as I get older, I'm just appreciative that bands are fucking
good too. I mean, some bands, I remember seeing bands, you know, and it was like literally you could trace the progression of like, oh, these guys were kind of good. And then they tried to get more commercial and they got a little worse and a little worse and a little worse.
Yeah.
You know, certain bands, you just be like, really? You know, like whether it was, you know, Replacements or the Goo Goo Dolls who were trying to be the Replacements or whatever it was, you know, and it'd be like, okay, I like this in some ways, and in some ways I don't, you know. You still kind of have to make up your mind. Like, just because somebody changes style doesn't mean they did it well. You know, I'm always trying to change styles, but do it well. To me, it's not a great thrill to go, okay, this song's got kind of a hip hop feel, but it sucks.
Yeah.
You know, it's like, well, then that's not good. You know, like it has to be like a good hip hop track or a good dancey track or a good any kind of a track, you know. People aren't always set up to experience that, you know.
But even with your hip hop, like songs with the hip hop kind of sounds to it, they're still punk rock songs too. They're fucking,
yeah,
you know, like you mix a lot of different genres into it too.
Yeah, I mean, to me, like there's a lyrical thrust to what we do that never really changes. You know, what I did on this Ralph Champagne record is definitely different lyrically than that.
I'm looking forward to that.
Switch it up lyrically, but if it has the Dwarves name on it, then I think it has a particular lyrical slant. You know, you can't all of a sudden be like, "Oh, my girlfriend," you know.
Yeah,
that's not really going to work. Or to be like, hey, no, seriously, what about the marine biology? You know, it's like, well, no, you know.
Is there songs about marine biology?
You know, I mean, whatever.
I know, like, I'm fucking with you.
Try and be important about things.
Yeah. I like how did the Mickey Avalon collab come around? Those are some cool tunes.
You know, I've known Mickey for a very long time. I sang on one of his first songs, the one that goes, roll the dice, everything's got a price. You know, that's me on there. So I'm very proud of that. I always thought Mickey was very talented, and you know, the whole challenge for a rapper is having a style, and he's got one, and it's unique, and it's certainly not biting a ghetto style or biting this or that style. He really developed his own style, and I just admire that. And again, it was during the pandemic. I just made kind of a couple of joke songs. I did a joke on Just a Friend by Biz Markie, and a joke on that song X's and O's by El King, which I thought was a very good pop song. And you know, so I just rewrote these dirty lyrics, and with
bitches and hoes,
I was like, yeah, bitches and hoes. And I thought, wow, you know who'd be perfect in this is Mickey Avalon. So I just hollered at him, and he came out, and we got in the studio and had a lot of fun. You know, he's a hilarious guy. I think he's in Indonesia right now.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Is he stuck there and can't come back, or is he just traveling?
He just loves it there. Yeah.
Nice. Have you guys ever played somewhere like fucking way out like that, or you guys been like North America, South America?
Yeah, we toured South America. There are some interesting spots there.
That was a good time.
It's kind of easier for, you know, with Mickey, he can kind of go to nightclubs and then just put on a tape, and
yeah.
So he kind of has a different way that he has to tour. And then I think bands like NoFX or the bigger, huge punk bands can do like weird, you know, hey, we're going to Indonesia, and still enough people would come out. You know, I think for the Dwarves, it's always he's in college towns, and that was about it. Every once in a while, you'll wander into like, hey, we want you in Mishawaka, Indiana. It's like, okay, you know, whatever, you know, we'll go there. You know, wherever people are cool, there's a little scene. But for the most part, we're not such a household name that we can go to like, hey, we're going to Romania, and everybody's going to come out. Like, they would be like, what? Dwarves? What? I never heard you. You know, so it's kind of like, yeah.
But in South America, what year was that? I am what I'm thinking of is the album Free Cocaine and South America, and I'm thinking the Dwarves might have had a really good fucking time in South America.
I mean, all you have to do is one hit of coke in Peru, and you're fine.
Yeah.
You're just right where you need to be. Yeah. No all-night bathroom visits in Peru.
And no worries about all the shit that it's cut with now. Everybody's dying from like fentanyl and stuff. Yeah. Are you still partying, or are you straight edge or straightened up a bit, or?
I would not call myself straight edge. No.
No X's on your hands.
No, I never was much of a drinker. I was, like to smoke weed and occasionally would do harder drugs. I'm lucky in that I don't really have an addictive personality except for marijuana. So for the most part, I was able to emerge unscathed from things that a lot of other guys had a hard time with.
Yeah.
Dope or downer pills, I've seen drag a lot of people down. And then on the other end, speed, coke, drag a lot of people down. I could always just do a hit and get on with it, but it's luck of the draw.
These days it is. It's scary, right? And just
Well, just in terms of being an addictive person.
Oh, that too. Yeah.
Some people just can't handle doing one hit of coke. It never.
Yeah, got to get more. I had
friends who were addicts, and they'd be like, "God, I wish I had some coke." I'm like, "Oh, I got some left over." They're like, "Leftover? You got leftover coke?" I'd be like, "Yeah, I got a couple of hits, whatever, Yeah. So I didn't never trip on it in the same way that other people did. I just didn't. I like sleeping,
Yeah, getting some rest. Leftover coke, leftover crack. Actually, a fan of that band, and that's a great name.
I actually had that.
You've had leftover crack as well, actually.
Crack's a great way to do coke. It got a very bad reputation, again, just because of addictive personalities on people. If you wind up looking like Tyrone Biggums and you're going, like, okay, maybe crack wasn't a good idea for you. For
it's
me,
nice
took a hit or two, had sex. I didn't have a problem with it.
Yeah, and nice to wake up the next day and not have a fucking nostril full of shitty cocaine boogers.
Right.
I'm actually an inspirational speaker for children, and I will not be promoting this on any of those pages. Or if they do hear it, don't do coke and don't do crack, kids. It's bad.
I really don't advise people to do drugs. It's funny because I have so many songs that
you do. I would just assume you guys are fucking haywire because of the music.
Doing drugs. Well, again, it's complicated.
Yeah.
Because junkies rip you off and they're boring and this and that. So it's like, I don't really want that,
Yeah.
So yeah, and they always have this self-romanticizing vision of themselves about how cool they are. It's like, you ain't cool, dude. You just smell like shit, and I don't know what you're doing.
Yeah.
A lot of junkies in rock bands, especially when I was starting in the 80s and 90s, and they were just fascinated with how neat they were. And it was like, you can't write a song and you smell. So I don't know what's so special about you. I don't get
track mark. Yeah, there's track marks up your arms.
It's like for every one Keith Richards, there's 1,000 dumb junkies.
Yeah.
It's like, hey, you ain't as clever as you think. Believe me.
But you like your ganja. Does weed play a part in the writing of a lot of your music or your lyrics, or?
It probably has. I don't know. I mean, certainly just by proximity, but for the most part, I don't view drugs as a way to be creative. I just view it as a way to get fucked up.
Okay.
Sometimes.
Fair enough.
I think if you try and do it to be creative, you're going to be chasing a very strange thing. I was never able to do it. I mean, I like acid, but music sounds very bizarre on acid. I don't think anybody could do it, Cocaine, you're always hearing like cocaine mixes of you go back and look at 70s records, like, Raw Power, it's like such a great record. How come it sounds like shit? Because everybody was on coke. Okay. Then they went to do a remix, and they just did a worse coke remix. I was just like, really? This is your remix? Like, Raw Power is one of the great records of all times. Like,
fuck yeah.
It just never has been mixed right. The best version I ever heard of it was some kind of weird bootleg of it that was on a cassette that was just like the rough mixes. It's like, really? Oh, there's some bass and some drums. It sounds right now. I mean, there have
Yeah.
been so many records just lost to coke. I can hear it when I listen to it. It's like, oh shit. That first New York Dolls record.
Yeah.
You want it to be great, and it is great in some ways, but
Be
ooh,
better.
coke,
Be better without the coke. Iggy was actually at Punk Rock Bowling a few years ago. It was really cool to see him live, and he's still just fucking killing it on stage. Yeah, man.
He's such a brilliant guy. He's such a great singer. He's such a great lyricist. He's so, women go crazy for him. He looks perfect. He's got an enormous dick. I mean, everything about the guy just screams like fucking, this guy is a rock and roll hero, a legend, just untouchable.
Yeah. And a big wiener. I didn't know he had a big cock.
Yeah, there's a picture of it in his book, I Want More. I mean,
really? Is there?
Yeah, I didn't go seeking out his dick. I got his book. I think I was in high school when it came out. I was like, holy shit, that's his dick? This is ridiculous. It looks like a prosthetic has been tied onto it. It's ridiculous.
This is unfair. He has all this talent and that huge cock, too.
Yeah.
And that face.
There's no such thing as fair in rock and roll.
No.
Fair doesn't exist. Nick Oliveri, he's another one with the huge dick. Ridiculous.
He's got big dick energy. He's a beauty, man.
And my dick is great. I don't have any complaints about it. But Jesus, some of these guys are carrying around. Right? We had a drummer who described it as like carrying around an old man in a sleeping bag. It's ridiculous.
Do you piss in the urinal, or do you piss in the fucking shitter when you go into the bathroom with Nick? Then, like, you don't want to piss in the urinal beside him.
And it'll give you a complex to look at that guy's dick. I try not to look at it. Every chance I get to not look at it, I take it.
He's a good guy. I think it's the last time you played Vancouver. When you played, it's called SBC. It was like a little mini ramp. Do you remember that? It was like a little half pipe, and everybody was like in the mini ramp. I was chatting with him outside afterwards, and I was telling him just jokes. I was basically just doing my fucking comedy routine for him, and he was laughing, and I was like, just got to keep telling more jokes. Like, I got this guy laughing. Like, this is a show to me. You gave me a show. I'm giving him a show. But what a great dude, and his contribution, his voice, really compliments yours, man. Like,
Oh, yeah. He's amazing. He's amazing. He's been playing with me since '92, whenever he can. And it's really been a pleasure. I love the guy, that's the best thing about being in the Dwarves. It's just the friends that I have, that I got, that just these amazing people that play music and are unique. There's nobody in the world like Nick Oliveri. You'll never meet anyone else like him. So that's really the best part.
Did I don't know if this how, like, because you and Josh Home had a bit of a beef, or do you still? How did that go? Because was he playing in both bands at that time, or Nick?
No, he never played with me.
Didn't he play in Queens? Did he play in Queens of the Stone Age, or?
Well, Nick did, yeah.
Nick did. I mean, yeah.
Yeah, he was a member of that.
Yeah, fuck. I honestly, I remember hearing that. I was like, all right, fuck Josh Home. I don't like.
I took Caius on their first tour. So
did you?
I've been friendly with them for a very long time, and I still see Brant and John, and they're great guys.
Yeah, man. Are you looking forward to getting back on the road and getting back out and fucking? I mean, that's a dumb question, I know. But,
yeah. I mean, I love playing shows. I don't know about the road. I like being on stage and playing. I think the road I had a lot of. I mean, you have to do it, and that's really where the money comes in for me. That's why I have to get paid to go play, because I have to go on the road in order to do it. I love to be on stage, but it's the traveling that's so difficult. It's like, you and I don't go there and do a half-assed job. If I go, I bring a good band and I play well and I go for it. No matter how many people are out there, no matter how the sound system is, no matter what anything is, that's really what I'm doing. So yeah, it's I'm looking forward to playing again. And it was fun to do this online thing, but it's always more fun to have a crowd and, you know, people enjoying themselves.
I get it. I tried one Zoom comedy show and it was fucking weird, man.
Yeah, gotta be hard. Comedy so much relies on getting laughs in the room.
Yeah. And just even like they had the mics on so you could hear a bit of laughter, but still just seeing people's face and kind of, like working the audience and reading the room. Yeah, I did one and I was like, I think I'll just wait till this shit comes back in person. And it's cool now. I'm excited that comedy just started up in person, shows are starting up in person, and looks like we're coming back to some level of normalcy. We'll be able to go out and do what we used to do.
That Altercation Comedy Festival in Austin in October that happens over Halloween weekend. My friend JT puts that on, and that's going to be fun. That gives me a chance to do the Ralph Champagne thing, and that is kind of more like a comedy act. It's sort of funny songs, and I just talk shit with the crowd. And
I picture like a porn. That's like sounds like a porn star name. Or like I could see you in like a suit and just like a fucking pipe or something and a martini.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think it's a suit kind of band for sure.
That's fucking awesome. Okay, man. Well, I don't know. Is there anything you want to plug or anything you want to fucking give some shout out or to anything? Obviously, Ralph Champagne.
Legends, man. Look for my solo shit. It'll come out next year, and I got a book coming out called Highland Falls. I wrote a new book, so that's kind of interesting. You know, yeah. Just keep your eye on the Dwarves. Check out thedwarves.com, and you know, stick with it.
Cool. I thank you so much for your time. You are a fucking rock legend, man, and the Dwarves.
They say one day we'll all be far away, but we'll never know the answer till it's way too late. Hey, hey, someday these pictures fade away, still we'll always be remembered for the sounds we made.
Like Christ on a mic, like Christ on a mic, broadcasting at you live and via satellite. Like Christ on a mic, like Christ on a mic, Messiah of the fire, Savior of the night.